Hi, I'm Chef Steve. Welcome to the Care Kitchen, where we cook with kindness. This program is brought to you by Comfort Caring at Your Side. Comfort Caring at Your Side provides personal care for people throughout the United States and Canada. We do our Care Kitchen program here every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern, and I really appreciate you spending time with me. You can also catch all of the previous episodes of Care Kitchen on the Comfort Caring at Your Side YouTube channel, and all the episodes are there. All the titles will tell you what that particular recipe was or the information that we were providing that particular day. Now, today's program is called Burger Bonanza, but we're going to talk a little bit about meat first, and then we're going to get into cooking some burgers. But, the interesting thing about this is I have found, as people age, we know that the appetites change, but we also know that there may be some issues sometimes with the ability to chew, swallow. So for that reason, I really think a lot of the meats can be ground that we use. But also from a budget point of view, using ground meat, whatever it may be, whether it's beef, chicken, turkey, lamb, pork, they're all available ground forms, and we can do so many things with them. That's not to say that something like a pot roast, where it's something that's cooked for a long period of time, that's very tender. The main thing about beef is the various varieties of it. And I know there's a lot of controversy also around how much beef should we eat. Is beef good for us? There's been lots of controversy. The fact is that really when it comes to good nutrition and healthy eating, it's really all about variety. And it's all about everything in moderation. So a little bit of red meat, if the person is a meat eater. Obviously, if they're a vegetarian or a vegan, they're not going to be interested in the meat. You do some of the other many recipes and options that we've discussed and will discuss in the future. But red meat actually has amino acids in it that are really helpful for people, especially as they age. So a little bit of red meat in the diet, everything in moderation, is really a healthy thing to do, and the quality of the product is really what you're looking for. So getting the highest quality product that you can find, and when it comes to beef, and ground beef particularly, there's different levels. Now, there's different numbers. Those numbers correspond to the amount of fat that's in that particular meat. So, for instance, the beef I'm using today for our burgers is 80-20. That means 80% of it is the solid protein, and there's 20% of that meat that's fat that's ground in there. Now, 80-20 meat for flavor is probably a good ratio because you do need that fat for flavor. But that's not to say that if somebody needs to really watch their fat, you can use a leaner cut. It goes up to 95-5. Typically, you'll see in the store 90-10 is the extra lean meat, only 10% fat. So when it comes to ground beef, that's how it is presented in the store and that particular issue. Then that's the fat content. Then we have the other part of what we're looking for the quality. There's grass-fed beef, which means that that the cattle were roaming around just eating grass, and that they were not fed a feed except when they're finished. It gets very complicated, but particularly grass-fed beef is probably the healthiest way to go, the way it's raised, the way it's cared for. And, that's not to say that there's anything wrong with the other beef. We're talking about really focusing on the nutrition, focusing on the health. So the grass-fed is great. The other beef also tastes great. You can use it, but I prefer to use the grass-fed whenever I can, when it's available. It tends to be a little more expensive. However, when we are talking about reduced portions, we don't need that much. Now, if you're feeding a family, a large family, that may be a consideration. But if we're just cooking for one or two, we can maybe put a little bit more of that budget toward this high quality product and ingredient. So anyway, we talked about ground beef, a little bit more about meat. Of course, when it comes to meat, we're talking about beef, we're talking about pork, we're talking about lamb, and then the other meats that may be eaten at various places in the country where it's more popular than others. Venison, bison, all these different types of meat that are also available. When it comes to the type of meat we choose, if you choose a filet mignon, a tenderloin of beef, it's going to be very tender, of course, very expensive, beautiful cut of meat, no doubt. And then we go to New York sirloin steaks and T-bone steaks and porterhouse steaks, all delicious meat. And in some cases, maybe a special occasion, but for the most part, you probably will be cooking things like chuck roasts and various things of that nature, which make great pot roasts. And the meat will fall apart, but it needs to be cooked a long time. So the less expensive cuts of meat typically need a long cooking time. Something like a pot roast, something like a stew, a ragu, these kinds of things. And we have recipes for that in the Care Kitchen cookbook. And we'll be preparing things, especially as we go more into the cooler weather, where some of those things are more, you think of those things more in the fall and winter. These hearty kind of slow cooked meals are very delicious. And we'll be getting into that as we move into the season. But for today, I've got the griddle out here, and this is a small griddle. This is it's actually called a little griddle, and it's perfect size for just doing cooking for a couple of people. So I've got that started. I've got my burgers here ready to go. So what I'm going to do, and I've made these into approximately 4-ounce patties. And this is a ground grass-fed beef that's 80%, 20% fat. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do, and I've got the griddle heating up here, I'm just going to salt and pepper these burgers, which I think is always a good thing to do before they go on. It helps to get that flavor come out, and it's quite good. And let's get them on both sides here. Our salt. And we've got our fresh pepper. Season these up with this. I like the peppercorns, the cracked pepper on there is very nice. Okay. All right. So these are ready to go. So we're going to put a little bit of, I'm going to use olive oil and put a little olive oil on our grill. I like to cook with olive oil because it really is one of the healthiest oils to cook with. It adds another element of good nutrition. It's a very good fat. It's a monounsaturated fat, which is very good for the body. It's one of those fats that we can have all the time. We really don't have to worry too much about it because it's such a healthy fat. Typically, we think, high fat diets, but we're talking about typically a lot of fried foods and things like that. We're just using a little bit of olive oil here to sort of get our pan going. Grease our pan because we're going to put our burgers on. Now I'm cooking 3 different things here. I'm going to get the burgers going, and then I'll tell you what we're going to use them on. So you can hear that sizzle. Got our burgers going. We'll let those cook a while. So what we're going to do today is we're going to make 3 different sandwiches. We're going to make a classic hamburger, and I have a Kaiser roll here. We're going to serve it on a Kaiser roll, which is just a great round roll and really good for that. We've got some rye bread here because we're going to make something called a patty melt. And if you're not familiar with a patty melt, it's basically like a grilled cheeseburger is what it is, typically done on rye bread, and it typically has some mustard on it with Swiss cheese. So we're going to make that once we have our burger cooked. We're going to get it on our bread, and then we're going to put it back on the grill and make a nice grilled sandwich out of it. Then our third sandwich is a cheeseburger hoagie or a sub roll, which we have right here ready to go. And this is a fun sandwich. I've got the burger on here. What we're going to do when this burger starts cooking, I'm going to take one of these burgers and I'm going to chop it up a little bit with my spatula here so that we can put it on our hamburger hoagie as sort of like a just ground meat that's cooked up. And then we're going to serve it hoagie style. And I'll show you what that looks like here in a couple of minutes. Okay, so we got our burgers working, cooking up. And with a little luck, this steam and everything that's coming off of here will not set our fire alarm off. But if it does, this is just one of those lessons and things that we need to always keep in mind. When we're cooking, everything is safe and contained. What's coming off of there, I don't think will turn the fire alarm on, but you never know. So we're just having fun. And if that happens, that'll even make it more fun. The only problem is Chef Steve will have to put earplugs in because it's very loud. So we're got our burgers working here. And by the way, just to let you know, I do have a live audience in the studio today in the Care Kitchen. And there's the live audience is here. They heard it was a Burger Bonanza Day today. And so I had some of the fans wanted to come over and be here. And they're just being very quiet. I mean, they may ask a question. I don't know. But they're being very quiet here and waiting for the burgers to get done so that they can have some. That's really the idea here, which I really like, and I'm sure you do too, because this kind of cooking can really be a lot of fun to share. I mean, you can have a little special event. Maybe your client has a friend, invite a friend over, have a little burger party. I mean, really, it's this kind of thing. Also, there's a lot of reminiscence around burgers. I know when I was a kid, every time we drove to Atlantic City, and I grew up in Philadelphia, we'd stop at a place called the Burger Chef. And we would have cheeseburgers and fries. And at the time, the cheeseburgers were 15 cents. The fries were a dime. So for 25 cents, I had a cheeseburger and an order of fries. Now, that's a long time ago. Obviously, that's not the case today. But I do remember that. But this is the kind of thing that you can bring up with your client. And people love to talk about those things. How much something cost, what they did, kind of foods they ate. It's just sort of a never-ending well of just great conversation when you have food in the mix. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my patties and I'm going to just kind of chop it up a bit and keep cooking it and let it get nice and brown. Okay, chopping that up. That's going to be for our hamburger hoagie. And our other burgers are cooking over here. And when it comes to cooking meat, we also need to think about the doneness. Like if you go into a steakhouse and you order a steak, they ask you if you want it rare, medium, medium well, or well done. Now, when it comes to cooking burgers, we really need to make sure that they're fully cooked when we serve them to our clients. We want to make sure that there's no pink in there, because even though it may be okay to eat a hamburger that may be medium rare, we're cooking for older people, and sometimes immune systems get compromised as people age. So we really have to be certain that this meat is fully cooked So we want to make sure that it's cooked all the way through. You can see as this cooks, obviously, the red goes away and it turns a different shade and it's not red anymore or pink. And then you know that it is fully cooked. And you see that the chopped meat is very easy to tell. With the patty, you just have to turn it a couple of times and make sure that it's nice and brown, and you can tell the firmness also of the meat as you're cooking, how it's getting done. So we've got quite a burger bonanza going on this griddle today here. And we're going to get ready in a couple of minutes here. We're going to be able to start to put our sandwiches together and also get our patty melt going here on the griddle as well. So we're going to let these cook for another minute and they'll be ready to go. And man, does it smell good here, I'll tell you. You know, when I was a kid, we used to go to Atlantic City every year, and we would go on the beach, and there was a little stand up above the beach on the boardwalk that I used to go to. And the guy who owned the shop, his name was Bernie, and he was a friend of my grandfather's. And he made burgers just like this. He had them on the griddle, and I remember getting a nice burger and fries, and you were just so happy, especially in the summer as a kid. It was so much fun. Maybe you'd even get a milkshake later. That was really a lot of fun. So, you know, these classic foods really bring back a lot of memories, and they're the kind of things that people really like. Okay, so I see we're just about ready here to go. Our chopped meat is pretty much there. So we're just going to finish this up, and then we're going to get started on making our sandwiches. I'm going to start taking some of this off. Got our nice ground meat here, chopped up, ready to go for our hoagie. And we've got our other two patties here. Okay. There's the chopped. We'll use this one for our patty melt. We'll get that going and let the other one just cook a little bit more. Okay, so we're going to get our patty melt together now. So I've got some rye bread here. I've got my cheese over here. Get our cheese going here. Now this particular sandwich calls for, I like to use Swiss cheese for it. That is the classic for it. Swiss cheese, so we're going to use some Swiss cheese here. Okay, let's put sliced cheese down, and we're going to put our burger on here. And what I'll do, just to get a little more spread on the sandwich, is to just cut it up a little bit, and we'll kind of smash it down a little bit so we get a little more coverage of the meat all over the whole bread. There we go. Okay, and also on this particular sandwich, we're going to put some mustard on the bread, and then we're going to put it on the griddle, and we're going to grill this sandwich. Put a little bit more cheese on the other side right here, and we've got our patty melt ready to go on the griddle. So what I'm going to do before we put it on the griddle, I'm just going to clean up a little bit of this excess grease here, just sop it up a little. We'll get rid of that. Now we've got a nice place for our patty melt. We're going to put that right down, and we'll griddle this right up while our other burger's going. Okay, so now we have our last burger here. This is for our classic hamburger. Okay, Got a lot of burger action going on here today. That's why we call it a burger bonanza. It is certainly a burger bonanza today. Okay, and I hear a few laughs from the peanut gallery, but I also hear from my live audience, I also hear some people are just getting hungry. They're telling me their stomachs are growling, and I have a question. What's your question, ma'am?
Do you have to season the grill?
Okay, the question was, do you have to season the grill? With these griddles today, you really do not have to season them at all. And they're all non-stick. They're really easy to use. And they're quite an inexpensive tool for the kitchen. So it's really a nice thing to have on hand. Okay, we're just going to flip you see our nice patty melt there. See, it gave a nice color on the bread. It really looks good. So while that's finishing up, we're going to let that cook a little bit more. While that's finishing up, we're going to put together our burger. Now, I like, and most people do, I think, like to have a little mayonnaise on the roll. So we're going to start out building our burger here. Okay, got a little mayonnaise on our bread right there. Okay, and so we're going to now put the burger right on there. Look how nice that looks. Look at that griddle. It just has a very beautiful color, and it smells so good. Okay, so we've got some other things here, which are classic. We've got some nice onions, some tomato, and some lettuce. So here we go. That is just a great looking sandwich burger. Classic burger. No cheese on this one. We've got mayonnaise, we've got tomatoes, we've got lettuce, and let's put a little bit of ketchup on here because everybody, for the most part, loves ketchup on their burger. Now this is again something that you can learn about your client. What is my client like on his or her burger? So this is the kind of customization things that you know, and it really helps when you know someone and what they like to be able to give them what they want. So that's the beauty of that. Okay, so we've got our nice burger here ready to go. And the next sandwich we're going to put together is going to be our patty melt is just about ready to go. So we've got our hamburger there on the plate. Let's see how this patty melt's doing. I think it's doing well. Just look under there. It's all ready to go. There we go on the patty melt. Turn our griddle off. And we have a nice patty melt sandwich here. And, you do your best to clean as you go. With something like making burgers, it does create a little bit of a mess. So that's why I try to contain it the most I can. That's one of the reasons the little griddle is so great, because it's not so much to clean up. I always like to use the smallest pan, the smallest utensil, because it just makes it more efficient when you're cleaning up. And if you're only cooking for one or two people, you really don't need to have big equipment, big pots and pans. And so it's one way of just making the whole process a little more efficient. So I'm going to cut our patty melt in half just to give you an idea what that looks like. And we've got that nice burger in there and the Swiss cheese. So we're going to put that up here on our plate. We're really not going to get into today any sides or things. We're just making these burgers, but classic sides, I've mentioned, of course, French fries, chips, applesauce is great to serve with it. A lot of people like that. You could serve coleslaw or salad. And I think I have some other comments. Yes, ma'am. Pickles, very good. Pickles are so great with it, and on the sandwich also. But these are the great ways that we can customize for our particular person that we're cooking for, whether it's a family member, your client or yourself. And, making it just right for yourself, that's great too. Okay, so we've got our burger, we've got our patty melt. Now we're going to make our hamburger hoagie. This is a very fun sandwich. We're going to start with a little bit of mayonnaise on the bread. And I've got a nice small hoagie roll. And again, portion size, always something to consider whenever you're cooking, because as people age, the appetites get diminished, and so you need to consider that when you're preparing how much you're preparing. And on this sandwich, and this is optional, but this is very good. And since I had a request for this from one of my audience members, they wanted to try this pepper relish. This is made with crushed cherry peppers. It's a little bit hot, but it's not real spicy, but it really adds a great flavor to the sandwich. So we've got a little bit of that on there. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put our cheese on here, and let's get a couple of slices of cheese. I'm using American cheese on this one. Okay. And now we have our ground burger meat, which we're going to add right on there. And hopefully most of it gets onto the sandwich. And again, this is one of those things that we work our best to. And I see I have another question coming. Yes.
Did you drain the fat?
Well, I drain the fat. Now, in this particular case, the fat is coming off of the burger and going on our griddle. So in this particular cooking technique, we really don't have to drain the fat. The other reason for that is the fat is rendering off, but also the fat, what's left there, is giving it flavor. When we cook a burger like this, most of the fat is rendered off. So, I started off with a 4-ounce burger. Typically, that's going to give me about 3 ounces of a finished cooked meat. So each one of these sandwiches has about 3 ounces of meat on it. Okay, so we've got the burger meat on there. And let's put on some onions. I've got some nice onions chopped here, and some tomato. It's some nice sliced tomato. I like to use the Roma tomatoes. They're small, and so you get good coverage, and they tend to be not as watery. They tend to have more meat to them. And we've got some nice lettuce here. This is a nice organic butter crunch lettuce that we're using today. Okay, so now our challenge is to close this thing up, because we've got a lot of stuff on here, but we just take a knife like so and hold it in, close it up, and we can get this sliced. And I'll show you what that looks like. On the inside, looks great. A really delicious looking sandwich. So let's see. We'll just recap a little what we did today. It's on our plate here, and this is going to be some good eating. And I've got a couple pieces of meat here. Let me just give a taste. Just the meat. Oh man, that meat is absolutely delicious. Okay, so in the Care Kitchen, we cook with kindness. We're making some delicious meals here. And, I want to remind you that this program is brought to you by Comfort Care and At Your Side. And we're here every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern doing our program, featuring recipes or information from the Care Kitchen Cookbook, making some of the recipes, being creative, doing some different things, and, showing what can be done, how many different options, and your creativity is really what comes in. What can you come up with that's maybe a little different? Maybe you can try something with your client. They may really enjoy trying something new, or just doing the old classic, something that they really love and something that you really love. sharing a recipe, sharing an idea, sharing a talk about a family dinner. It just really helps in the whole process of caring for someone. People want to connect. They want to connect on a basic level, and something like food is as basic as it gets. We all need to eat. We may as well enjoy what we're doing, eat the best possible ingredients that we can eat in the just done in a creative, fun way. Have lots of fun. Enjoy cooking. I encourage you to cook. We're here cooking with kindness. Kindness is the most important ingredient, and it's just a pleasure to be here with you. Thanks for being here. And I think I have another question coming in. And the question, where can I get the Care Kitchen Cookbook? The Care Kitchen Cookbook will be available very soon on Amazon, and I will let you know when that's coming, when it's available. Just putting the finishing touches on some of the content and pictures, and it'll be on Amazon very soon. So thanks for that question, and it's just been fun being here. I have another question coming in.
In planning meal planning, should you, is 3 ounces the correct
So,
amount of
so the question is about the portion size in terms of amount of protein. 3 to 5 ounces, depending on the person's appetite, is a good amount of protein for a meal. We have to remember that older people have diminished appetites, and if we offer them something that looks too large, it may turn them off. So you want to make sure that when you're serving it, it looks right. It looks like the right amount for that person. So 3 ounces is certainly an adequate amount of protein to have in the context of the meal. They can have a little more, usually rule of thumb, 3 to 5 ounces. And that's a good amount of protein for a meal. Well, this has been lots of fun being with you today, and I always love getting questions. It's nice to have a live audience here today, and we're going to enjoy these sandwiches here in a minute. But I'm going to just take a taste of this patty melt. I haven't had one of these in a long time, and it's a great sandwich. Really, really good. The rye bread tastes so good with that, and there's mustard on there and the Swiss cheese. Well, I'm going to enjoy that, and we're actually going to be cooking up some more burgers for the group of people that we have here today that we're enjoying the show. Thanks for coming, all you people who are here live, and thank you for all you people who are out there in the world watching the Care Kitchen, where we cook with kindness. I'm Chef Steve. I'll be back again next Thursday at 1 p.m. Make sure that you do lots of cooking and you're cooking with kindness for those in your care and for yourself. Have a great one. I'll see you next time. Thanks.